Welcome everybody, this is John Bura from MammothInteractive.com. In this tutorial, we're going to be taking a look at how to make a YouTube thumbnail, and we're going to be building it from scratch in Photoshop here. So you want to make sure that you have Photoshop for this tutorial. But before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about some of the discounts and offers that we have. You can see some of the discounts for Udemy courses where you can learn how to build apps from scratch, become a web developer, become a game developer, etc. You can see the Udemy courses down below at a discount, and one lucky student every month wins $500 for completing a course. So if you ever wanted to complete a course on Udemy, you can go and take one of our courses, and if you complete it, you are entered into or selected to enter into a competition where you could win $500. We pay this out every month and our students love it. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to make a new file here, and we're going to make the width and the height width 1920 and the height 1080, just like that here. Now, one thing that we're going to do is we're going to set the background, and we're going to set the background to an off-white. So we're going to double click, and instead of making it white, we'll make it slightly off of white. So we're going to change our RGB values to 250, 250, 250. Now, just a little tip, if you change your RGB values to any number, doesn't matter what number it is, but as long as they're all the same, they'll equal some shade of gray. Now, off-white, and if you look very closely, there is a little bit of a difference. I like using off-white because it's not completely white and it's not standard, and because it's not standard, it pops out just a bit. So let's go ahead and let's push the G key and let's add in a background here. Added a new layer, and I'm going to take the Marquee tool and we'll kind of move it to the bottom here. Now, some people like to do it as about a third, a third, and a third, but maybe something like this would be perfect. Let's go ahead and let's pick an off black color, and this 50-50-50 works pretty good. You can also do 25-25-25, which is also an off black. It's slightly a little bit more black. So let's go ahead and let's use that one here. So we have this nice dark color here. Now what I've done is I have my logo, and you're more than welcome to use whatever logo you want, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy this here. And let's paste that, kind of move it around. We'll kind of move this kind of somewhere in here. I think that looks pretty good. Now, this thumbnail, of course, is actually really cool because it kind of thematically fits in with this logo here. Okay, so let's say, in fact, we'll add in some text here, and the text color will be this off-white color. So I'm just going to use the eyedropper here, and we'll call this Photoshop Tutorials. Okay. Want to make sure it's spelled correctly, and the reason I say that is that there is currently no spell check within the text field in Photoshop. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this all the way up here, and I'm going to move it here. Now there's several options you can do at this point. We can say Photoshop Tutorials, just like this. Okay, and we can kind of move it wherever you want. Or what we can do is we can move this down, and if we kind of push Alt here, you can kind of move it down just a bit more. And what this will do is if you kind of make, and you can see that it's kind of bleeding into the text here, this works with kind of a negative space concept here. Now I'm just going to overdo it just to show you how this works here, but the idea is that the background and the words are technically one and the same. Okay, so that works, and I kind of like that. All right, and maybe move this down a bit. Photoshop Tutorials, and yeah, that actually looks pretty good. Now let's say this is Photoshop tutorial number 1. Right, so let's go ahead, let's add in here, and let's call this number 1. Well, let's make it this nice orange color, and you can pick whichever orange color you want here. And by the way, what can go in this logo? This logo here can be anything that you want it to be. It could be, a picture of yourself. It could be anything. But for now, let's just go ahead and let's add number 1 here. And I'm going to use a font called Ethnocentric. Ethnocentric, and it's one of my favorites. There we go. Okay. And you can see here that we have our number one here. And what I'm going to do is go to Edit, Scale, and scale this up quite big. So maybe not too big, just something like that here. And what I'll also do is go to Edit, Transform, and Rotate. So we'll kind of move it off here. Now, if you push Shift, you can get all the hard angles, like 45 or 15, etc. And if you don't, you can kind of move it here. So I think that's probably pretty good. Okay. Now, I'm thinking that we should maybe move all of these up. So I'm going to push the V key. I'm just going to kind of move this up here. And yeah, that's starting to look a little bit better. And one thing that you have to understand, if you're not a graphic designer, a lot of what you do is you kind of just end up tweaking it very ever so slightly. All right. So if we kind of just zoom in just a little bit more and we kind of move this down, oftentimes you can just eyeball it, but the cool part about uh, this new Photoshop is that it has all these rulers in there. So it's up to you whether you want to do that here. So we got Photoshop tutorials, and if you wanted to, you could put your logo, and in this particular instance here, you could actually put in the Photoshop icon if you really wanted to here. But you know, if we were going to say number one, number two, number three, etc., we could go and we could add that in here. But this works out for a lot of reasons. This little very simple thumbnail. First of all, it's bold. Okay, it's very simple and it catches the eye. There's not a lot of detail in it, and that's done 100% on purpose. Okay, and the one thing that I find cool is that if you bring this down, for example, that looks great. I think that looks pretty cool. But if you move it up just a bit here, it kind of forces the eye to look in a different way. So it's up to you which one that you like here. This one works well, and you can also do whichever one you choose. Lastly, if you want to be really cool, is you can, for example, go to the text field here, double click the second, and then change it to orange. All right, and I think that looks pretty cool too. But if you want to do it the other way around, right, we could do it like that. Photoshop tutorials. It's up to you which one you want to do. Personally, I like this, the second one being the orange, because Photoshop is highlighted. Okay, so this is pretty much the conclusion of this tutorial. You can go and you can make very simple and very bold thumbnails for your YouTube videos if you wish. Now remember, you can take a look at a lot of our training content, as well as you can subscribe to our mailing list for free stuff, subscribe to our Facebook, Twitter, and to our YouTube channel to get a lot of tutorials on Photoshop, coding, pretty much anything technology related. And remember, if you do take one of our Udemy courses and you complete it, you're entered in to make to the Mammoth Scholarship, where one lucky student will get 500 US dollars in the month here. So I hope to see you in a Udemy course or on our subscription site at mammothinteractive.com, and I hope to see you in another course. Thank you for listening.